When you hear the word business, what pops into your head? Probably skyscrapers, right? Startups? Well, the real story of business, it's so much older than that. It's the engine that's built empires, connected entire continents, and really has shaped human history for thousands and thousands of years. So, to really get this story, let's kick things off with a question. For more than 1,000 years, one single place was the absolute center of the world's economy. Now, it wasn't Rome, it wasn't China. Any ideas where it could have been? The answer? The Indian subcontinent. For centuries, merchants and travelers had these amazing names for it that really captured its mind-boggling wealth. They called it Swaranbhumi, the land of gold, and Swarandeep, the golden island. And look, this wasn't just some poetic nickname. It was a cold, hard economic fact. Okay, so just how dominant was this ancient superpower? I mean, the scale of its wealth is kind of hard for us to even wrap our heads around today, but there's one number that really puts it all into perspective. 32%. At its absolute peak, between the 1st and 7th centuries, the Indian subcontinent is estimated to have controlled nearly a third of the entire world's wealth. That's a level of economic dominance that's just, well, it's almost impossible to imagine in our modern world. So how on earth did this happen? It definitely wasn't an accident. It was powered by this incredibly sophisticated economic engine, a global network that connected producers, merchants, and customers all across the known world. You have to understand, the subcontinent was basically the world's luxury goods factory. We're talking about spices that were literally worth their weight in gold in Roman markets. We're talking vibrant indigo dyes, the absolute finest cotton textiles you could find anywhere, and even exotic animals. These weren't just products, they were status symbols across the ancient world. But, trade is always a two-way street. It wasn't just about sending things out. To fuel its armies and keep its elite happy, the subcontinent imported powerful war horses from Central Asia, that famous silk from China, and of course, a constant flow of gold and silver that came in to pay for all those amazing exports. Okay, but think about this. How do you manage all this money when your trade routes are crawling with bandits and pirates? Well, you innovate. And one of the most brilliant financial innovations of the time was the hundi system. You can think of it like an ancient version of a wire transfer or a traveler's check. It was a financial tool that just made long-distance commerce so much safer and more efficient. And the process itself was just genius in its simplicity. So a merchant in, say, a city like Surat could deposit a bunch of gold with a banker and get a hundi, which is basically a credit note. That little slip of paper could then be sent thousands of miles away to a city like Peshawar, where a business partner could just cash it in with another banker. Boom! No more risking your life carrying bags of gold across dangerous roads. But as we all know, history never stands still. This incredible period of dominance, it eventually gave way to centuries of massive economic change. We're talking about a dramatic rise, a really steep fall, and then a modern effort to rebuild. This timeline, wow, it tells a really dramatic story of decline. I mean, look, as late as 1700, the region still held nearly a quarter of the world's economy. But from there, the fall was just steep. By the middle of the 20th century, its share had collapsed to less than 4%. And then you see that last date, 1991. That's a crucial turning point, the beginning of economic liberalization. So what happened? What caused that huge drop? Well, under colonial rule, the economy was completely re-engineered from the ground up. Instead of exporting valuable, finished goods like it had for centuries, it was forced to become an exporter of cheap raw materials like cotton. And then that cotton was shipped to factories in Britain, turned into textiles, and sold right back to the very market it came from. Okay, so this whole story we've been talking about, from ancient wealth to colonial decline and now modern rebuilding, it's all driven by this one powerful force, business. But to really understand where things are going, we need to get crystal clear on what business actually is and what makes it different from other things people do. At its core, the definition is pretty simple. It's any economic activity that involves the regular production, purchase, or sale of goods and services, all with the main goal of earning a profit. That simple formula, that's the engine we've seen shaping thousands of years of human history. And the key distinction here is between economic and non-economic activities, right? So a doctor working in a hospital is earning a livelihood. That's economic. But someone helping a stranger cross the street out of kindness, that's non-economic. business lives entirely in that first category. It's all about the livelihood. We can break it down even further into a few core characteristics. First, it has to be an economic activity. Second, it involves the sale or exchange of goods or services. Third, it has to happen on a regular basis. Selling your old car isn't a business. Fourth, there's that profit motive. And fifth, and this one is absolutely crucial, there is always an element of risk. This table really helps clarify the different ways we all work. A business owner is chasing profit, but they're taking on a ton of risk. A professional, like a lawyer or an accountant, earns a fee, and there's some risk, but not as much. And then an employee earns a salary or wages with basically zero financial risk. Understanding these different roles is just fundamental to understanding any modern economy. So, this brings us full circle. How does this incredibly rich ancient legacy of commerce connect to the India of today and, its ambitions for the future? Well, you can actually see the echoes of this long history in modern policies. Initiatives like Make in India are all about shifting the economy back to being a global hub for finished goods, not just raw materials. Sound familiar? And creating a single unified tax market across the country, that's kind of a modern version of what the Hundi system did centuries ago, just making trade flow more easily. And the results of this modern shift? They're pretty clear. Since those major reforms back in 1991, the economy has kicked into a whole new phase of rapid growth, really reemerging as a major player on the world stage. The entire trajectory has fundamentally changed. When you step back and look at it, business is never static, right? It's always evolving. It goes from ancient spice routes to digital payments, from paper hundis to the blockchain. It has shaped our past, it is building our present, and really, the only question left is, what's it going to build next?
See you in next video of business studies. Thanks for watching. I hope you have liked this video. Please subscribe and like the channel for more education-related videos.